Hi, I'm Dave Vickers and welcome to the Photo Show. Today we're doing the second part of our look at the custom settings menu for the Nikon D7100. If you haven't seen the first part, there's a link in the description below so you can link to that video and then come back to this one. Remember, if you like what you see on the Photo Show, please comment, like and subscribe in the boxes below. Here's the second part of the Nikon D7100 custom settings menu. Moving on, we're into the D section. We're whizzing along now. D1 is beep, and this is, it's currently off at the moment, so let's turn that, and you can hear there as we go through the options. And this is beeps for various functions. You can be used for when you lock focus, to beep when the focus is locked. You've obviously got the options there of the different volume sounds, and then you've got an option here of the high or low pitch beep. Let's go back to the screen. Next one up is your viewfinder grid display, and this is when you're looking through the main viewfinder, whether you have grid lines displayed to help with your composition. You've got two choices, on or off. So there's no options here for different grids. Your grid is either on or off in the display. ISO display and adjustments. So this is on the top of your camera here, where mine there shows the frame count, which is obviously there's 1,000 shots there on that card. But if I change it to ISO sensitivity, show ISO sensitivity, instead of the frame rate, that's now changed to showing the ISO that you're currently using. And obviously if you adjust the ISO, that number's going to change. So the next one down is show ISO and easy ISO. If you're using the camera in either the program or the shutter priority mode, you can change the ISO by rotating the command dial, and that's that one. And the last one there is where we started, which is showing the frame count. I prefer that because I can always just push the ISO button on the back of the camera here, which will display up the ISO on the top anyway. So I prefer to know how many frames I've got left when I'm shooting. Next one is screen tips, and this is if you're using the info button on the back of the camera, it'll actually tell you what each of the various sections are, and give you basically almost like a small run through the manual there. And you've got two choices within that, on or off. Next one down, D5, is your CL mode shooting speed. So let's click on with that. And this is for when you're continuous shooting. So you're using the top dial here. And the next one round from single shot is CL, which is continuous low, which is your low speed shooting thing section. And you've got choices here of when you push the shutter, does it shoot 6 frames, 5 frames per second, 4 frames per second, 3 frames per second, 2 frames per second, or 1 frame per second. I keep that on 3 frames per second because on the continuous high, 6 frames is the amount, so I might as well have a different setting between the CL and the CH. Next one down is maximum continuous release, and this is how many shots the camera will take if you're in continuous shooting mode and you just hold your finger on the button, and you can choose for it to shoot between 1 and 100 shots. So if you're depending the number you've set there, if you're in continuous shooting mode and you hold your finger on the shutter release button, this will shoot up to 100 shots in one continuous burst. Next one down is file number sequence, and this is choosing how you number your files within the camera. If this is on, the camera will automatically continue from the last number of shots that was taken, or the last number of shots you have in any particular folder on the camera. I tend to keep this off because I treat each time I shoot as a separate project, so therefore I'd like the numbers to return to 0 back at the beginning. Information display is when you have the info box up here. How that is displayed, in the auto setting, it will decide, depending on the light situation, whether it's dark writing against a light background or light writing against a dark background. The other option here is B, manual, and you get to choose whether it's dark on light or light on dark. Okay, the next one down here is LCD illumination, and this refers to your panel at the top here. So if we put that on, you can see now that the LCD has lit up the panel on the top of the camera, and that will happen all the time. It obviously use more battery life. Let's turn that back off again, and now you can see that light's gone off, and it will come back on if you move your switch here across the light bulb setting. That'll come on for a short time. So if you're looking in low light and you want to see what's on there, you can just turn it on or off, but you can have it so that's permanently displayed. Next one down is auto exposure delay mode. So this is if you are on a tripod and you're taking, you need the camera to keep still. This determines how long between you pushing the shutter. You push the shutter and it will move the mirror up out of the way, and then it'll tell the camera how long to delay before firing the shutter. So it's a way of keeping the camera even stiller without using a remote trigger for it. It'll wait 3 seconds, 2 seconds, 1 second, or off. Next down is flash warning, and this is basically an on or off. If the camera thinks that if you've got this on and the camera thinks it's too low light, it will display a little lightning bolt symbol within the viewfinder to let you know that the camera thinks that you should be using flash. I keep that off because that's my decision when I use flash. Next one down is the battery type. And this is for if you're using the additional battery grip that goes with the camera. You can select which type of battery you're using within that, whether it's alkaline NIM batteries or lithium batteries. And then you've got battery order, which again is if you're using the additional grip, battery grip, you tell it which batteries you'd like it to use first. Do you want it to use the batteries from the grip first or the batteries from the camera first? So moving on from the D section, we're now into the E section of the custom settings menu, and this is bracketing and flash. So let's go into this menu here. First up, we have flash sync speed, and you can see here that we've got the D7100 has a maximum flash sync speed of 1/250th of a second. That's if you're using external flashes or non-compatible flashes. But if you're using a compatible flash gun or the built-in flash gun in either program or auto mode, you can push it up here to 320th of a second and set that as your highest limit there. So let's go on to the next one. Here is your flash shutter speed. This is giving you the slowest shutter speed that you can use if you're using the camera for either slow flash synchronization or rear curtain sync, which is when normally in flash operations when you push the shutter, the flash will fire at the beginning of the curtain's opening. With rear curtain sync, what's happening is the flash will actually fire as the second curtain closes. So if you're on a very long exposure, let's say you're on a 3-second exposure, normally the flash will fire the second that the shutter opens. That's when the flash will fire. On rear curtain sync, the flash will fire just before the shutter curtain closes. So that gives you your options there for setting the shutter speed that you want to use for that option there. Next is flash control for your built-in flash. So this is the flash on the top of the camera here, little pop-up flash, which I wouldn't recommend you use, but it's there if you want it. And the options here you have is TTL, so that's through the lens. So that flash is operating in direct correlation to the settings that the camera is reading. Next down is manual, so you are choosing the settings for the flash gun, and you've got options there for various increments of full through to, let's have a look what the last one is, 128th power. So you can really cut down the power option on the camera there. And if you're using the built-in flash, you've got control over that. Next is exposure compensation for flash. And what this is doing is giving you the choice of the flash compensating for the entire frame or the background only. So the flash is lighting up your subject, but the ambient background it will often be a different reading from what your flash reading is. So you can adjust the compensation. So what you're adjusting is the ambient reading for the background only, or the entire frame where you're adjusting the flash compensation as well. Modeling flash is either on or off. So modeling flash is, if you turn that on, when your flash is up, if you push your exposure compensation button on the front of the camera here, let's come round. If you push this little button here, it will light up a modeling flash so you can actually see what's going on. But as you can see, that was quite aggressive to say the least. So let's come back down and make sure that is turned off. Next is your auto bracketing set. And again, this is for when you're flash. If you're bracketing shots, so it's taking 3 shots, one on the metered exposure, one under and one over. This is telling you what areas you want bracketed, whether you want the auto exposure and the flash bracketed, the auto exposure only bracketed, so therefore it's adjusting just the camera settings, not the flash settings. The flash only, whether it's just adjusting the flash but not the camera settings within your bracketing. Bracketing the white balance, so whether it's bracketing various white balance, or your assisted D-light options there as well. And then you've got your bracketing order is your next one. And this is which order, if you're shooting bracketing shots, which order it shoots them in. Do you want it to shoot in the metered mode and then an underexposed shot, then an overexposed shot, or do you want it to shoot in an underexposed shot, the metering mode, and then the over? So you've got them in the orders that they work in. So that's the E section taken care of. Let's move on to the F section. So we're closing in on the end now. We've got 2 more sections left. We've got F and G. So let's go down to the F section here. And this is where you can optimize what the buttons on the camera do. You can change what their function is within these settings. So let's click into that. So first here we have the OK button, which is the OK button here in the center of your command dial here. And what you can choose to do here is the first one here is reset. So what this will do is, if you've moved your focus point around within the viewfinder, if you press OK, that will reset it back to the center, so you can start from the middle again. Next here is your playback mode. So you can use the OK button to scroll through the various options there, whether it's showing the histogram, whether it's showing the settings, or just the straight image. And last one there is live view. So you can set the OK button so that when you push it, the camera will automatically go into live view, rather than using the switch on the back here, the button here, to activate live view there. I tend to keep it on shooting mode, because if I've moved the focusing point around, it's very quick just to press OK and go back to the center point there. Next one down there is to highlight your active focus point. So if you push that within the viewfinder, it will highlight where the focus point is within your chosen focusing points. And the bottom there is that it has no function at all. It's not used. I keep it on the reset the focus point because that's what I like to do. Next is assign your FN button. And your FN button is around the front of the camera here. You can just see it there at the bottom. Just below the lens there is your FN button. And in normal operation, okay, so your options here. So if you've got press, you go there, and that will give you a bunch of different options if you push the FN button, whether it displays a virtual horizon, like almost like a level for you, your My menus, which is custom menus you set up for yourself, or to access the last menu of your My menus, the last thing you accessed, or to act as a playback button, or none there. And then you've got press and command dials. So this is what happens when you press the button and use the command dials on the front and the back of the camera there. And the options you've got is to choose the image area, which is the default. If you normally press it, it'll default to whether you want to scroll between the full size sensor or the 1.3 crop, whether you want to set your shutter speed or aperture by one step, whether you're using a non-CPU lens, to activate the de-lighting setting, or to activate the HDR high dynamic range, or none. So I'm going to keep it on the default setting there of the when you use it, it'll activate the crop mode. Next is to assign your preview button, and your preview button is the one here. If you can see it on this, just in here is your preview button, just at the top of the lens there. And in normal operation, that acts as a aperture preview. So if you push that, it'll shut the aperture down on the lens and give you an idea of the depth of field. You can go through the various options there. You've got flash value lock, whether you want it to be the flash value lock, whether you want it to be the auto exposure, auto focus lock, auto exposure lock if you hold it in, and auto focus lock if you hold it in, and then AF. So you've got a bunch of different things you can assign the button to: flash off, bracketing, whether you want it to shoot a raw file in addition to the JPEG, whether you want to switch it between the metering modes from metering, center weighted, spot, whether you want it to turn the viewfinder grid display on or off. Again, if you want it to be the virtual horizon, the My menu, the access to top, the play button, or none. So we'll go back to the top of the screen because I like to use it as the preview button. Next is your AEL AFL button, which is this one on here, sometimes called the back focusing button. And again, you've got the options of what this actually is used for. You can assign it to be the preview button, the flash lock, the AE lock. Same options you had on the other buttons, just allowing you to choose which option you had there. And then what it does if you use that button plus the command dials. And again, you've got the same options here as you had with the FN button and the preview button. So you're choosing to use it for whichever option you choose there. Next is to customize your command dials, which is your dial at the back here with your thumb and the dial on the front here with your finger. And in normal operation, the dial on the back here will do your shutter speed, and the dial on your front here will adjust your aperture. But you can customize that. So reverse rotation. So if you reverse rotation, the back will change from being your shutter speed to being your aperture, and the front will change from being your aperture to your shutter speed. Change main sub. So you've got on or off options there. And whether you want to use it for using your if you're in the playback menu, whether you want to use your command dials for scrolling through the menu there. Release button to use dial. This is for functions where if you normally hold the button, you have to hold two buttons. You have to hold the button down and move the command dial at the same time. What this will do is allow you just to push that button and then use the dial without holding the button down at the same time. So you've got an on or off option there with that there. Empty slot release lock. This is if you have no card in the camera, will it allow you to fire the shutter at all? If you've got it on lock, then if you've got no cards, memory cards within the camera won't function. It will lock up, and that's basically letting you know that you don't have any cards in there. Or if you've got OK enable release, that will allow you to still fire even though you don't have a card in the camera. Reverse indicators, and this refers to your exposure meter icon that you would show up either on the back screen or within the viewfinder, and you can choose in normal operations it's minus to the left, plus to the right, but you can choose to reverse that round and have that the opposite way round if you want. And the final one is if you're using the additional battery grip, to assign the buttons within the battery grip. Again, the same way you'd assign the FM buttons or the preview buttons, you've got the options there to assign the buttons within the additional battery grip to do exactly what you wish it to do. So let's go back, and our final section here is movie, is G for movie. And again, it's a bunch of options here that you assign the various buttons. So we've got the FN button on the front of the camera there, and you can choose that it will view the information, the photo shooting information, auto exposure, auto focus lock, auto exposure lock, auto lock when it's held in, auto focus lock only, and AF or none. And again, exactly the same idea, but with the preview button, which is the other button on the front of the top, and you've got the same options again there for adjusting any of the sections there that you wish. Assign the AF, AE, AFL button there. Again, same options again. You can choose, so you're basically just choosing how you assign each button as it's gone. And lastly is assign your shutter button, which is obviously your shutter button on the top there. And so this is for when you're shooting movies. Do you want it that if you push the shutter button it takes a photo, or do you want it that you're now using your shutter button on the top of the camera as your activation for starting to record your movies? So that has taken us all the way through the custom settings menu. I know it's huge, but there's a bunch of different options there to choose from. If you want to be customizing your camera to various settings to set it up how you want, you've got a ton of options there to customize your camera and have it function exactly the way you want. So until next time, I'm Dave Vickers. See you then.